But basically, one of the things in this course here, you're going to be looking at a new model by David Olson. And it's called Integrated Family Therapy. And primarily, it's a model that gives you more than one tool in terms of ministering to couples and families who are having problems or who are hurting. I always say it's a poor plumber or carpenter who only has one tool to work with. And so therefore, David is giving you quite a number of ways that you can minister to couples or families who might be having some problems. Also, it's important to the focus is more from a systems focus, not from an in-depth psychological sort of approach. That is, a family therapy, a systems approach looks at relationships. When the therapist who uses a system approach is in a process of beginning counseling with you, that therapist is looking at you in terms of how you fit into your family unit or how you might fit into relationships. The therapist, yes, is interested in terms of some of the interpsychic things that are going through your mind, yes. However, the major emphasis is on how you relate with others in terms of a system or a unit, be it a marital one or a family system one. So therefore, I always tell persons, just because you have a group of people in a room that be mother, father, uncle, aunts, grandparents, what it might be, it does not mean that you're doing family therapy. It does not mean that you're doing it from a system perspective. That is not what it's about. It's the way you view and see this group of people. It comes from you in terms of your seeing these persons in terms of their relationships, in terms of how they relate in that family unit per se, more so than what's going on in their individual minds. And as we go through, further go through Olson's book, you'll get more and more of a sense in terms of the system perspective, of the family therapist perspective. Now, I'm just going to go through some of the themes, because there's so many different theories and themes in terms of therapy, period, especially systems and marital and family therapy. There are so many themes. And so, therefore, one could get quite confused in terms of trying to deal with all the different themes per se. Another disadvantage here in terms of some of the family therapy or systems therapy, some people are just purists. They feel that only one technique is the one that works for everyone. That's ridiculous. That is just ridiculous. That's saying that I have this one hammer that's going to be able to, I'm going to build this house with this one hammer as such. That's not going to work. The bottom line is that there's one book that supersedes all books, and that's the Word of God. And the foundation that is laid in terms of all situations that we need to be standing on in the process of really ministering to persons who are hurting happen to be that of Jesus Christ. But these themes, these way of looking at situations are man stuff, but they can be useful in terms of explaining some situations. Now, with I'm going to start with psychoanalytic themes. And we know that in your training, some of you who have been trained in the area of psychology, you're familiar with it. You've definitely heard of Sigmund Freud and psychoanalysis. I got so tired of Freud at one while everything I was seeing was internal Freudian sort of stuff when I first started in psychology, But there are also marital therapists or system therapists who utilize what we call psychoanalytic themes. And it says some marital and family therapists approach treatment from a psychoanalytic viewpoint. Generally, these therapists focus on the individual psychodynamics of family members and are concerned both with how conscious wishes and fantasies influence family interpersonal relations, and also how family interaction influence individual psychodynamics. In other words, these therapists focus on what's going on inside the person's mind. Well, be the fantasies or wishes or unresolved conflicts, they would utilize that perspective and bringing that out in a way of saying that this is what we're looking at in terms of need to be dealt with for things to be okay in that person's family or for things to be okay in that person's marriage. And moreover, they are likely to view marital and family conflicts as reflecting the attempt of individual family members to come to terms with their own unconscious wishes and needs. And so therefore, when they see persons who might be having marital conflicts or family conflicts, they're saying, well, this person is basically, the conflicts are arising from this person's attempt to come to terms with their own unconscious wishes and fantasies in terms of their families as such. In turn, changes in family relations are likely to reflect changes in individual attempts to gratify personal needs and desires. And so, therefore, again, these are in-depth psychologists who are saying that there are certain sort of wishes and fantasies that are going on inside the person's mind, which the person is not conscious of, that create conflict in a marriage or a family per se. And a good reference to this happened to be a book by A. Grumman and Nix Kern. That's G-R-U-M-A-N and K-N-I-S-K-E-R-N. They're the editors. It's called The Handbook of Family Therapy, and Bruna Mays, INC, 1981, happened to be the publishers. Now, there are family therapists who have more of an intergenerational themes. In other words, they look in terms of family of origin. Now, this one is one that I want you to pay attention to because you will see this one coming up in the process of our utilizing, explaining Olson's model. So this one, pay close attention to. It says some therapists are concerned about the influence of family generations upon the behavior of individual family members. Now we're saying the influence of family generations upon the behavior of individual family members. Of course, intergenerational theorists might also be concerned about the interpersonal interaction of current family members, but they are likely to believe that the behavior of past generations, grandparents, aunts, uncles, have influenced the structure and interaction within a given nuclear family, including the development of the current family problems. And so therefore, the intergenerational therapists are the ones who are using that perspective are more than likely said, okay, now we have to take a look at your family of origin to get an idea of what might be contributing to your current problems that you might be having now in terms of your marriage, your family, or in terms of your relationships. And so therefore, they might go back not only to your immediate family, your mother and dad, but also would want to investigate what's been going on with their mother and father, their grandparents. And also might go further back in terms of your great-great-grandparents as such, in terms of getting a sense of what might be contributing to the conflicts or the distress that you might be experiencing in a marriage or a family. And a guy named Basim Menyi Nagy, that's B-O-S-Z-O-R-M-E-N-Y-I-N-A-G-Y, in Ulrich in 1981 state, for example, at any point in time, at least 3 generations overlap. Even if the grandparents are absent or dead, their influence continues. Psychological, transactional, and ethical aspects lose crucial meaning if they are not seen in this perspective. And they're saying that even if the grandparents, the person's generation of persons are dead or are not there at the current time, they still have some type of influence upon that individual. And that would be an interesting one that we're going to take a look at later on. Instead of calling it intergenerational themes as such, we're looking at we call it mostly family of origin. And now these theorists, the intergenerational theorists, using this approach in terms of one's generations, influencing their current relationships, stressed the importance of family members in treatment, contacted members of their family attempting to assess the impact of past generations on current conflicts. And so these persons encourage all the family members that you can get to come into treatment in terms of trying to resolve the problem that's being presented. And I had one lady, she had she had the couple, and she had the family, then she had the grandparents, she had the aunt, uncles, and everybody else in one room. Now that's quite a bit to deal with, in all honesty. It is. She found that to be quite a task, and so therefore she asked me to come in and sit in and to really kind of be the co-therapist in the situation, which I was reluctant to do, but I went ahead and did it as such. But in the process of sitting in there and really dialoguing with her and see how she was dialoguing with the people, again, I found that it was not family therapy that was being done. It was just individual being done with a group of persons there in the room. And one person was basically addressed, but the other person was just kind of sitting there looking. And so therefore, again, it wasn't really true what you call family therapy or system therapy work. Now, some of these intergenerational family therapists, they will encourage some persons to return back to their family of origin, mom and dad, if they're staying in another state or what it might be, and to go back and to try to resolve some issues with them. They would encourage that, and I do have a video on that, really, in terms of how this therapist encouraged this man who was having some conflicts with his daughter as well as his wife to go back and to really visit his only living aunt. That was his mother's twin sister. And it was kind of interesting in terms of some of the things that what a change in this man's disposition had come about when he returned as such. So they will even go to that extreme, saying that you need to go back and really find out some more about your family, kind of try to resolve some issues and so forth and so on, and then come back to the counseling session and let me know what's happened as such. Now there are some persons family therapists who use a communication theme, and this one you want to pay attention to also. Because this is one that we're going to be looking at in terms of Olson's model also. And now, Olson, that little book that you have, you're not going to really understand it in the first reading, nor the second or the third reading. Okay? So don't let it fool you. There are a lot of underlying dynamics going on in each one of those little small statements that he's making that's impregnated with a lot of information. And so therefore, you have to find yourself, if you read it for the first time and just, I'm finished with it, then you're making a mistake. You need to go through this book and go through this book, because in the latter part of the class, there will be some cases that we will be looking at. And we're going to see how you can utilize Olson's model in terms of really addressing some of the issues that might be coming up in terms of some of the cases. Now, the communication, the family therapists who are more of the communication theme or bent, some therapists who apply the principle of communication theory to nuclear family interaction with the goal of improving member communication in order to promote effective problem solving in person. In other words, these persons are saying that if we improve the communication of how the way the family members communicate, couples communicate, if we improve that, then things will be resolved by the improvement of the communication. Now, communication theories attend to both verbal and nonverbal modes of communication and try to understand patterns of family interactions, norms of behaviors, and the expression of individual values of these elements are expressed in communication. Now, they are going to be paying close attention to not only what you verbally say, but also what you don't say, your body language. And they're going to be paying very close attention to the verbal as well as the nonverbal. That's going to give them feedback in terms of what might be going on here in this relationship, be it a family relationship, a couple, or what it might be. In addition to helping family members improve communication, therapists might also teach individuals how to evaluate effective communication themselves so that improvement continues after treatment. And so therefore, they want to move you at a level of communication that even after you have left treatment, you will still be able to utilize what you've learned in terms of communication skills to resolve some problems as such. It's kind of interesting here how I've seen persons come into of course I've been doing counseling for about 26 years, but 7 of those years still doing it is my private practice, and I've done a lot of marital counseling, especially with persons who were professed Christians as such. And it's just amazing when they come in and I ask them after praying and kind of establishing to them how I do therapy and counseling. It's amazing as to when I ask them, how can I help you, what are your conflicts, what are you having problems with? So they would say, we have a communication problem. Well, that's not sufficient. You must ask them, give me an example. And when you say you're having a communication problem, okay, and they might say, well, you know, when I get ready to talk to my husband about the bills and the financial situation, he gets angry and walks out of the room and slams the door. Well, that's more of a specific, concrete example of that. And so therefore, and then when he does that, we don't speak for the next 2 weeks. Of course, when we go to church, it looks like we're the ideal couple. But we're not speaking to one another, have not spoken to one another for 2 weeks as such. So you want to get some clarification from persons when they tell you that they have a communication problem. Please ask them to explain that to you so you can get a little bit more clarity there. And one of the persons that's an expert in this area here of communication themes is Virginia Satir. Last name is spelled S-A-T-I-R. And she wrote a little jewel of a book called Cogent Family Therapy, A Guide to Theory and Technique. And Cogent Family Therapy, A Guide to Theory and Technique. And we do have that little tiny book in the library downstairs someplace. But it's a very informative book in terms of how to improve communication between people or among persons, or what it might be. Now, there are family therapists who utilize structural themes. And this is another one that I want you to pay attention to because we will be revisiting this one again. Now, structural therapists are concerned about the social organization of marital and family units. In therapy, these therapists often attempt to print out this structure to family members and often even attempt to change the existing structure. And I want you to think about that. They often not only point out to the persons who might be having some marital or family problems, point out some of the things that's going on, but they also will attempt to change the structure. The underlying assumption is that identifying and changing the physical structure, the psychological relations among members will change. And so therefore their contention is that if we can change some of the physical dynamics that are going on, then some of the psychological dynamics will change also. Thus, for example, structural therapists might suggest in therapy sessions who sits next to whom, or suggest changes in the content or direction of conversation as a method of influencing the relation of one family member to another. Therefore, if they by chance see a couple that comes in with a teenage daughter or a teenage son, and there are the chairs sitting there, and find that the teenager sits right between mom and dad, and of course they present to the therapist that we are having a lot of problems here, in terms of marital problems, and we need some help here. And since we've been having a lot of marital problems, our young person here has been acting out and really not wanting to go to church, not wanting to obey us. So therefore, we need your help here. But when you look and see that young person sitting in between mom and dad, the first thing that would come to a structural therapist's mind was that we need to change the seating arrangements. We need to get that young person from between the two persons here, because it implies to me that there is a triangulation going on here, where we need to pull this young person out of the middle, put him over there, sitting over there, and we need to have mom and dad sit next to one another so mom and dad can talk to one another as such. And so that structural therapist will look in terms of changing the seating arrangements in a process of doing the work with them. And even in my situation, I had it as such that two couples came in and they were basically at odds with one another, newly married really, and the lady was very upset because the 15-year-old son was creating a lot of conflict for her, was giving her grief, saying, "You're not my mother. You can't tell me what to do." And so therefore, he really didn't care too much for her at all, And so when they were talking about the situation, I saw that they were not talking to one another. They were talking at one another. So therefore, the next time they came in, I had their chairs facing one another. And they saw that. I said, "Yes, I have a purpose for that." I said, "I want you to talk to one another, not talk to me about that other person, or talk at one another. I want you to talk directly to each other." And that's why I changed the chairs. And by doing that, in all honesty, we definitely, the communication started happening where they could start talking to one another, directly to one another. But I found out also that I had to bring the son in also, eventually, the man's son, that was creating conflict for the stepmother, as he calls her. And so therefore, again, he sat away from both of them. And he was just the prototype of his dad. And I looked at him and I looked at his dad. You guys are very similar as such. But he made some very good observations in terms of what was going on between mom and dad and how it was impacting him. It made very good sense as such, where he felt that it was as such that the people, mom, this new bride of dad, so this new wife of dad, they had such a relationship now that they have left him out. So he was sitting out there feeling left out. And so in the process of really his verbalizing, he was verbalized well, this young man. And in the process of doing that, eventually, again, I did a rearranging where they were kind of closer together here, and eventually they came to one level of communication and emotional catharsis and letting things out and so forth and so on, that eventually the mom and dad, or the stepmothers and the dad, what it might be, went to the young man and just embraced him. And I tell you, that was to me, that was a moment for some tissues there, you know. Just that moment, oh yeah, I had my tissues this time. I had my tissues, I sure did. But that was a real breakthrough, you know, as such. But I could tell when he first came in, where he sat, and then the movement as such. And so therefore, some of these things do work. They do work, and we will be looking at this one also, the structural theme of the structural therapist. And the person that's really the outstanding therapist in this area, one of them, or the originators of this structural themes of structural therapy, last name is Aponte, A-P-O-N-T-E-H, Aponte. And he wrote a book, Organizing Treatment Around the Family's Problems and Their Structural Basis. Aponte, A-P-O-N-T-E-H, Aponte, Organizing Treatment Around the Family's Problems and Their Structural Basis. Now, the next one is the one that we're not going to really be addressing in this class, but it's one that's kind of interesting, because this one is called the behavioral themes, or family therapists who utilize more of a behavioral theme here, a behavioral perspective. And here, behavioral family therapists, theorists are concerned about changing specific manifest behaviors of individual family members from the point of view of social learning theory, which means they believe that behavior changes in response to the rewards provided. When you hear the word manifest, most of you must know that manifest means something that you can see, as opposed to covert. So it's a manifest behavior, those behaviors that you can see. And so therefore they're saying they're concerned about specific manifest behaviors of individual family members from the point of view of social learning theory, which means that they believe that behavior changes in response to reward provided. Now, another word is behavior change in terms of rewards that's provided. In turn, the behavior of one family member is viewed as resulting from the rewards provided by other members. Although environmental forces both within and outside the family are also believed to shape and encourage behavior. In essence, family problems can result either from rewarding the behavior of one family member that does not promote the satisfaction of other family members, or from failing to reward behaviors that does promote satisfaction. Therefore, in the treatment, behavioral therapists attempt to identify individual interaction problems within the marriage and family unit, develop methods to reduce, reinforce a problem behaviors, and encourage and reinforcement of positive behavior. Let's boil down to this. I had a guy was principal of a school, and bless his heart, he had a whole bunch of M&Ms. And so therefore, the thing that he was more of a behaviorist. When the children exhibited good behaviors, they got some M&Ms. When they didn't exhibit good behaviors, they didn't. Our society is based on certain rewards also. If you're a hard worker, do a good job, and so forth and so on, you get a paycheck. If you didn't get one, you'd probably be very unhappy as such. And so therefore, there are some family systems where there are certain behaviors of persons within that unit that are rewarded. Let's look in terms of good behaviors, and there are behaviors. Well, in a family system, sometimes that's good behaviors, but are not rewarded, really. The one that I've seen in a lot of family systems, behaviors as such, is that the one that was acting out the most got the most attention. And the one that was really doing what they need to do, that was the correct thing to do, was the one that was pretty much ignored. And I've heard many persons, young person would tell me that, for goodness sakes, here I am, trying to do what's right, and everybody's ignoring me, and they're paying more attention to my 14-year-old brother, that's always in Raymond Hall, getting in trouble, into drugs and so forth and so on. So what's the use? And so therefore, the family unit, not even recognizing it, many times find themselves rewarding irresponsible behaviors, and overlooking the one that's really showing responsible behavior as such. And they sometimes have heads up on it, because all of a sudden, if that person that was doing very well starts acting up, then the family would be very confused. Well, why are they acting up? They've been good all along. Now why are they acting up? Well, some of the young persons would tell me, well, why should I not? Maybe if I act up a little bit, I get more attention. But I told one young person that I was dealing with, I said that I do not do Raymond Hall. In other words, I do not deal with young persons who get involved in criminal behaviors. And this young man was a young minister, a preacher, young, felt a call in his life, very young age. He was about 15 at that time, and it just so happened that evidently he did not believe me. So when he turned 17, he ended up going to a store with his buddy, and they saw a shirt, and he took the shirt, and of course got caught. And I asked him, I said, why did you take the shirt? He said, I saw it, I wanted it, so I took it. I said, okay, thou shalt not steal, huh? But such thinking, the way you're thinking, is going to land you in prison, okay? And so they let him off that time, but the next time he ended up stealing something even more, and he ended up in Raymond Hall. He didn't hear from me. He didn't. And so after he got out, he gave me a call. I said, how you doing? Good, notice you're out of Raymond Hall. You ended up back there again. I'm not. And so when he went in there, after a while, when he went there twice for stealing, the boy corrected his behavior, because he knew that I was not going to be visiting him at Raymond Hall, going to a lot of searches and what it might be, because he was irresponsible and as such. So I did not reward the behavior going there to really visit him as such. And so he pulled it together. He pulled it together because he felt that his relationship with me was pretty important to him. And so therefore, he is now doing very well. Of course, I'm not going to tell you what I told you what might happen to him if he ended up in prison. That's another story. But when I got through talking to him about prison, that he definitely ended up straightening up his behavior. Rather preaching to folks, telling them, thou shalt not steal and stuff. And what are you doing, young man? You have to model that what you have to live this life. This is not a game. And so he's pulling it together now. So overall, from these brief accounts, there's considerable richness of value and diversity of treatment strategies within the scope of marital and family therapy. However, transcending this diversity are two contributions that warrant special attention by pastoral therapists, since the contribution might easily influence how all therapists investigate and treat client problems, regardless of their interest in marriage and family therapy. The first contribution is the belief that the family unit is an organized social and psychological system with operational principles that can be understood and influenced. So we're looking at the family unit is an organized social and psychological system with operational principles that can be understood and influenced. Reflect on this statement. Reflect on how your family system works. You as mom, dad with your children. Reflect on it, how your congregation as a system works. Reflect on it. I want you to start reflecting on that. And the more you start reflecting on it, because I want you to start getting an understanding in terms of how you might start to deal with problems that start to result from these systems. Be your congregation, be your marriage, or just be your overall family as such. Also, here we have the second contribution is that conjoint sessions are a valuable tool for both identifying and treating psychosocial problems. And when you say conjoint sessions, when you're dealing with families, systems, it's good to have someone else to work with you in dealing with those persons, a family. It might be too much for you. You can pretty much be overwhelmed by trying to, you as that one person, deal with a bunch of arguing family members who are coming into your office as such, or dealing with sometimes a couple that's about ready to really go at it as such. And as I said, I still cannot understand what happened in this situation where this minister had just gotten through counseling this couple, and he's been counseling for many sessions, and then right after that couple had come out of that counseling session, they drew their guns and shot one another. I still don't understand that dynamic. And the policeman said it was good that they could not shoot well, so they ended up wounding one another. But I still could not understand that dynamic. Just out, and then I still can understand that how it can happen that the person were all these sessions with this minister, pastor, and he was not even aware of the fact that they had guns. They had guns. Now these were Christian folks, and they had guns. So therefore, I mentioned about the ones who look at the communication therapists. They watch verbal as well as nonverbal. When I look over at Eric Westbrook and see his nonverbal behaviors, it tells me a lot. It tells me quite a bit. He doesn't have to say a word. Not a word. It tells me. Why? Because that's what you're used to doing. My deal is that many times I pay more attention to what you don't say than what you do say. But I pay more attention to what the Holy Spirit of God tells me to pay attention to than even what my own carnal mind tries to tell me to do. So therefore, in all your sessions, you definitely should always subject yourself to the Holy Spirit of God as the counselor that's going to bring to your knowledge or clarify a lot of things that you might not know or see as such. Now, the development of the concept of the family system is probably the single most important contribution to the specialty of marital and family therapy. As described above, theorists offer a variety of models for understanding family conflict and treatment, yet what transcends most of these theories is the assumption that the couple or family itself represent a psychosocial system. Something is left out here. I'm always finding a book they're criticizing something, okay? The only book that I don't criticize is the Word of God, okay? It's inerrant, okay? It is the Word, okay? But these other books, they leave out something. Now, I can look at the the social, but we're made of more than that, How about the physical dynamics, And how about the real crucial one, the spiritual dynamic? That's one of the major ones that you as pastors, as ministers, as Christian counselors, what it might be, should really be attuned to. That spiritual component, that's very important, that you need to be attuned to, especially. Because my feelings are that when you're spiritually sick, a system that is spiritually sick is a system that's in trouble. And unless that system is able to get well spiritually, that system is not going to get well any other way. That's going to be lasting. I make it very clear to families, and this is my position, is that I can't change you at all. That's not I don't have that kind of ability. But I know Christ can transform you. Christ can do the transformation. But I can't. But the only thing I can help you to do is not only kind of become aware of certain things, the guidance of the Holy Spirit, but at the same time help you to shift a little bit in your system that everybody can be somewhat comfortable. If you're willing to really work with me on that one. It's kind of like you find yourself shifting in your chair or your chairs because you might be sitting a certain way. A chair might be feeling a way that it might not be too. You just don't get up and leave the chair. You might just shift your body weight so you can feel a little bit more comfortable. And that's what I try to do with families as such, couples. Let's do a little shifting here so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable. And feeling a little bit more comfortable, then hopefully you'll feel less hurtful. The hurt can start dissipating as such. But it takes a lot of work. It's easier said than done. I kind of look at these authors and writing the books, and some of them have some good information. They really do. Olson has some good information, really. And I really admire what he's attempting to do in terms of bringing together a model that you can utilize. He's doing something not a lot of persons have tried to do in terms of helping pastors kind of understand what's going on. So I can admire what he is attempting to do. But it is not an easy task when it comes to really applying these dynamics. Not at all. But we will be looking at these dynamics later on in terms of the model. Now, one of the theories that is not basically a part of the model that we're going to be looking at is the developmental theory. And I tell all persons who are doing any kind of counseling, I said you really need to really look at developmental issues. The advantage of a pastor, one who's pastoring a church, or one who has been attending a church for a long time, they have an opportunity to really observe persons in their congregation from the time that they were little tots, latency age, adolescents, young adults. They have an opportunity to observe how people evolve and grow and develop as such. And to me, I think that's a great advantage as opposed to someone just coming to a counselor who has not had that kind of opportunity to really see persons evolve or develop, or families evolve and develop as such. But developmental issues are some issues that some therapists or some counselors overlook, and it's something that's very important. It said many family therapists are informed by developmental theories that address the family life cycle. And I will be giving you some definitions. And these terms that I use, if they're not clarified for you in Olson's book, I have the definition of those terms written out for you. The developmental theory of Carter and McGoldrick in 1980 focused on the family life cycle. They suggest 6 stages of the family life cycle. Pay attention. Stage number 1, the unattached young adult. Number 2, the joining of families through marriage and the newly married couple without children. Number 3, the family with young children. The family with adolescents. Launching children and moving on. Number 5. That means they've become young adults, they finish high school, it might be, and they've headed out of your home, they're going to college, or what it might be, and they're going to the military, and so therefore you and your husband hopefully have an opportunity to move on with some of the things you want to do. Number 6, the family and later life. That is, as the person's now, you're now senior citizens, you're now old now, and so therefore, again, I've had situations where persons who've come to me in their later stages of development, later life, with some issues. And one situation that was very heart-rending for me is that this lady was in so much distress And the reason she was in so much distress is that she said her husband, that they've been married many years, for over 30 years, really, and has just up and just left her for another woman. And she wanted to know why she asked him, why are you doing this to me? And he said, well, I finally got one of those women that I felt has got that good hair. So therefore, this is all what I always wanted, to have a woman that got that good hair. And so therefore, that's why he left her. That was his explanation. And she was just torn. I mean, it was just sad in terms of this latter part of the deal, what might be, and something of that nature happening as such. So it took some work. It took a lot of prayer and a lot of really work with this elderly lady, really, because she had not only was going through a period of anger, but she was also eventually going into a state of depression. And then when you are aware of the different stages that a family or a couple have to be at, then it gives you some idea of how you might want to really counsel them also. Now, I've worked with a lot of situations where everything seemed to have been going okay with some families until the kid hit adolescence or teenage. And all of a sudden, boom, everything started going crazy or haywire. And they come in saying, hey, what's going on here? You know, go to church, no problem. And now, since turned 14 or 15 or 13, doesn't want to stay at home, doesn't want to go to church, come in late, violate curfews, you know. You have to do something with this person. And I look at that, and when you see an adolescent within a family system, and there's conflict because of adolescent behaviors, then it might be giving you an idea in terms of, okay, you know, this having been developed no issue here, you know. This person no longer 9, 5, what it might be, but the family system itself is still operating the same way. Okay. And so, like one guy told me that his dad said that, well, you either abide by my rules or you leave. So he said he left. He was 16 at that time. So he left. And he's told me that now his ex-wife, is now bringing his 13-year-old son to him and telling him that I cannot do anything with your 13-year-old son that he had not seen in 13 years. He is not abiding by my rules, and so therefore I'm bringing him to you. And I kind of looked at him. I said, brother, you definitely need Jesus. And you definitely need to be just where you are in the church. And when the young man comes with mother, you make certain that you get involved in the church. Get involved in the church. But it's kind of interesting as to how life kind of brings things back around to you at times, too. But again, at that adolescent stage, and we're not going to go into it, but something is going on there. It could be the inflexibility of the family. It could be that this person is trying to develop their own identity. There could be a lot of things going on in terms of that young person that is creating some stress for the family as such. But knowing the developmental stage in which these families are at, you know, you might really know how to really minister to them, along with the prayer, of course, and the Word of God and so forth and so on, but how to minister to them also. Now, there are people who are family problem-solving therapist. And this is one of the dynamics here that you're going to have to, that we're going to be looking at, really. The family problem-solving therapy, they call it, but I call it family problem-solving therapist. And Reed is one of the outstanding person because he developed family problem-solving therapy as a straightforward, short-term approach to family therapy that focuses on the development of family problem-solving skills. He's focusing only on family problem-solving skills. Now, keep in mind this one that I'm talking about because we're going to come back to it later on. The family, first of all, determines the specific problems to work on during the course of family therapy. In other words, the family that comes to you, you don't decide what the problem is. The family tells you what they see the problem as being. And also, they are the ones to determine how they want to work on that specific problem with your guidance. Okay? He said that the family determines the specific problems to work on during the course of family therapy. The family therapist then works with the family using both in-session tasks and out-of-session tasks, they might call it homework, to help the family develop problem-solving abilities to deal with the problems that have brought them into treatment. Family problem-solving counselors believe that success in problem-solving helps in other areas of family life. Family problem-solving is straightforward. It does not try to understand problems as pointing to deeper family issues. Rather, it sees family problems simply as a lack of problem-solving skills. Keep that in mind. Now, this is from the family problem-solving therapist perspective. They see family problems simply as a lack of problem-solving skills, okay? And so, therefore, what do you think is going to, what would this imply to you as you really think about it? Now, here Olson is talking about it. You might read it word for word for your book, but Olson is talking about it, but when you have to actually have hands-on and really deal with these situations, we have to really deal with these families as such, you'll find it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. And hopefully out of this class that you can really find some realistic ways of really implementing some of these things that they're talking about. Because if not, you're going to find yourself very frustrated, not wanting that family to show up anymore. And so therefore, we're going to take a deeper look at what she's talking about in terms of the family problem-solving therapist sees family problems simply as a lack of problem-solving skills. Now we're going to stop right there. Next time we meet, we're going to look at the structural family therapy. That's a part of the integrative model also.